thousands of miles. Like, for instance, here's a deep 4.6 to 4.9. If you add them together, 4.6 and a 4.6, okay, 4.7, 4.8, something like that. Deep upper fours here, and then all the way down at the bottom of the plate boundary or at the south tip of the plate boundary, a shallower, larger earthquake, 1 magnitude larger. So if we have like a 4.8 up here, we get a 5.8 down here on the same plate boundary. So something came up from here down below. Think of this like these are down in a basement somewhere, and then you come up the steps through New Zealand, and you come up to the first floor, and you get a shallower, larger earthquake. Somebody's banging on the floor underneath, and the vibration comes up to the floor and comes up to the surface. That's kind of what's going on there. So if it's just one spot, we watch for something like this. If it's 2 spots, then we watch between both spots for a bigger earthquake to strike that's up to a magnitude, maybe 2 magnitudes larger when we start getting multiple deep earthquakes in 2 spots. When we start going all the way around the planet from Afghanistan all the way over to South America, we watch for 2 different things to happen. Shallower, larger earthquakes, of course, like I just told you, next to the deep quakes, and then a series of somewhat large earthquakes to break off in between at the halfway points between our sets of deep earthquakes. And so we have to watch for instance, just the triangulated 3-way point between these sets of earthquakes that are raised high off the planet here. And if you were just to draw a triangle and go right into the middle of it, it would bring us in somewhere right in here, out in the ocean. But we have to look on the plate boundaries. That's the rule to this, is we watch the halfway points along the plate boundaries, which slightly changes the location, not much, but just right down to here to one of the more famous earthquake locations on the planet. Papua New Guinea gets hit regularly within, I'd say, 3 to 5 times a year, just pulling that out of the air, but that's pretty accurate. 3 to 5 times a year we might get big earthquake activity here. And when I say big, it's usually fairly large, so 7.0 plus is what we would look when we see multiple deep earthquakes like this spread out from Guam, south of Japan, on the Izu Ridge, 2,000 miles to the southwest, down here to the Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia border region, and then 6,000 miles over to the east, and that takes us all the way to Fiji. We would look in between all of that, and that brings us in here. So we watch for a new 7 to pop off here, which, again, only happens a few times a year, once every few months. And we're going to look, again, because of these 3 sets of earthquakes there. Then we go over to the west, and we have our deep 4.3 all the way over here at Afghanistan, where the tip of the arrow is. Let's go zoom in on it. Here we go, and I'm going to turn on a display capture at this point, just so you can see my mouse. I know you can't really see my mouse right now, so hold on. Sorry, I didn't come prepared to get my display capture turned on. There we go. So our deep earthquake here on our letter D at the tip of the arrow, and it's a deep 4.3. So on its own, we would watch for a 5.3, up to a 5.3, to pop off next to this, and likely downstream or away and out and away, if you want to think of it like that. I call it downstream. Look which way the arrows are pointing. So we go from here over to here, and in between the two is Iran. So we'd watch for a new 5.3 to pop off in the middle in between all these 3 sets of earthquakes here, and we'd go on the plate boundary right there. Now, a big explosion just happened in Iran 2 days ago, or a day and a half ago, that was just massive. It was like the explosion that happened at the port in, was it Lebanon, I think? I don't recall which country, Syria, Lebanon. Somewhere over here in the Mediterranean, there was this giant blast a few years ago. It looked like a nuke going off, but it was some kind of chemical. They said it was a fireworks factory that blew up a few years ago. Okay, well, a new fireworks factory blew up here in Iran with the same kind of explosion, same color, same everything. It was red and black. So I don't know what kind of chemical that was, but man, it was big. So that was a huge blast, but it didn't show up as any kind of seismic activity, which I'm surprised. It should have showed up as like a 3 or a 4 on the Richter, but maybe they've ruled that out as a blast, obviously. Now we watch Iran for a 5.3, a shallower, larger earthquake next to it. But remember what I told you about when we get multiple deep earthquakes like this, we have to watch between them. between the deep earthquakes, the multiple deep earthquakes. So I already named this spot here for that 7 that should pop off, or near 7. It could be an upper 6. But we're trying to get it within a magnitude. Over to the west, we would watch between the 4.3 and this deep earthquake here, which is a deep, well, it's a deep 4.3 as well, or is it a deep 4.5? A deep 4.3. So we have a deep 4.3 here, and we have a deep 4.3 over here. Now we go around the bends of the plate, so we have to kind of make this S shape here. We go around the bend, and we follow the plate boundary to the north, bend over to the west, and we get to our other deep quake here. So halfway point between those two, if we follow that line, puts us somewhere right in here. So we're at the northwest tip of Sumatra, Indonesia, which there's already a line of earthquakes going up into China through Thailand and Myanmar. You got to remember, Thailand had the 8 that struck just a month ago, a few weeks back. It just devastated the area. We haven't heard much out of the area since, so I'm guessing it was pretty bad, and they're just going to, you don't hear about stuff afterwards because the media kind of dies out. Nobody goes there. Well, I mean, people go to Thailand, but we won't hear about it here in the States. That being said, we watch on the south side of here where all this activity is kind of stemming from, and that brings us in here as the halfway point between the 4.3 all the way over to Afghanistan, marked in green, and the other deep 4.3 raised high off the planet here. Okay, so what magnitude? We watch for a magnitude less than what I'm warning for in Papua New Guinea. So if we're going to watch for up to a 7 here, then we watch for up to a 6 here. Now, a 6 here on land matters. A 6 just 50 miles off the coast. People there might feel it on the coastline, and it'd be a regular day at the office for them. It matters if it's on land or not. And I'm trying to get it to 200 miles, but it's a matter of 50 miles from the spot where the plate boundary is to land. So we have to warn the people in northwest Sumatra. Again, it's for something in the 6 range. So when I say warn them, you would tell them. You'd say, hey, watch out for a new 6 that may be coming on land in northwest Sumatra. But you don't give a warning for it like, oh my God, there's going to be a 6, because they're used to that there somewhat. And their buildings are actually somewhat stable enough to handle that because of the more shanty-like structures. They actually can withstand some of the earthquakes as opposed to cinder block that we might see over in Russia or coming out of a Turkey or something, where the cinder block and cobblestone stack houses are the ones that really collapse in large earthquakes, or big earthquakes. A 6 is a big earthquake, not large. What's the difference between big and large? Again, I'm going to get a sip of my coffee. There's so many jokes that could be made with that. Okay, so let's recap. So we're going to watch for a new large earthquake here in the West Pacific that could go up to 7. Now, I want to remind everybody that a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, when I issued my earthquake forecast for last week, the biggest that we got was a 5.9. I was a magnitude off. I was looking for a 6.9. So I consider that a strikeout. Even though the earthquake hit, quote unquote, I'm looking for a large earthquake to strike down here at the South Sandwich Islands in my last forecast. And again, I said 6.9. And what hit? USGS. Now, USGS, 5.9. Now, it could have been a 6 point. I swear, it could have been. Anyway, that's what they reported. That's what we go with. So I consider that a strikeout on me. I was overestimating what was going down here to the South Sandwich Islands. Now, what if they underreported it by magnitude just to spite me again? They did call for my arrest, right? I wouldn't think they would be that bad, would they? That being said, our new large earthquake, I mean, I hope I'm a magnitude off on this. No, I don't hope, because, I mean, if I'm off by that big of a magnitude again, then I have to reassess what's going on with the deep earthquake. So I hope it strikes out in the ocean and nobody feels it over in Papua New Guinea. What else are we going to look for? Coming out of Alaska. So coming out, and another one that sort of struck out. Again, I would call it a half strike, or maybe a foul ball, if you want to think of it like that, if we were thinking of baseball terms, where I was looking for a 5 to strike in Oregon, and it went radio silent for like 6 days out of the 7-day forecast, and then that new 4 point whatever struck off the coast. Let me see if it's still even on here. It's not. It's from last week. So it was like a 4.6 or a 4.7 or whatever struck out here. I don't have the actual number, so I'm just going off memory here. But it was right out here on the Juan de Fuca, and I was looking for it to strike here. And I was within a magnitude, but it was over 200 miles, which I'm trying to get it down to 200 miles. Being real nitpicky on it now. I want to get it down to a very fine point. So if it's out of the 200-mile area, even though that's within the magnitude, that's technically a strikeout for me as well, or at least a foul ball. So that's 2 strikes. But the rest of the forecast was great. So there you go on that. Not bad for coming back after months without activity and not paying it, without me being active, without me paying attention. That's the key. I got to pay attention to these things so I know where it's all going on. Now, Grok can do the forecasting for you guys. If you want to just get a forecast and you want to know an area to watch, Grok is able to just crank it out. Now, you can go over to Grok and say, with the Dutch Sense method, please identify an area where you have to name the area you want it to forecast. So you would name like in the West Pacific, Japan to Indonesia. What's the watch for what are we looking for in the near term? And then using the Dutch Sense method. And then Grok should be able to tell you, we're going to watch for a 5.4 or 5.5, whatever to be 5, 6, 7, 8, if it's large earthquake activity. And it's doing it pretty well. So I was expecting AI to be able to do it. It just needed the proper input. I tried to get that to the people with Watson after I turned down the financing. It didn't work out well getting it to them. But anyway, now that AI's got it, man, I'm happy. Oh, God. Because I could just, if something happens to me or I get taken out or an accident or I just pass away or whatever of natural causes, not that that's going to happen. Don't put a hex on me, guys. But that AI can carry it on from there and people can learn from that. And then whether or not my videos get deleted or not, it's a matter of public record now. AI can do it. That's awesome. Let's talk about the United States. Let's go in and take a quick look and see what's going on. So over on the East Coast, we started to see activity this past week. Check it out. Look at the last 7 days worth of earthquakes. Let me turn off all the numbers because that tends to get people a little confused. And just understand that the size of the rings equal the size of the earthquake. So here's our 4 over on the West Coast, for instance. And then here's our 3s. Whoops. There's our 3s. And then there's our 2s, our 1s, and 0s. And all it does is the 2s fill in the halfway points between the 3s perfectly. Do you see that? How it goes across from the Pacific Northwest and it's dark red, light, dark red, light. The lighter colored earthquakes are in the past day or two, and the red earthquakes are 3 to 4 days old or 5 days old. So the red earthquakes are older and the lighter earthquakes are younger. And this matters because the red earthquake struck first. So what happened first? We got 3s and 2s going across the plate following the edge of the North American craton. And I've showed the craton 1,000 times. I'm not going to pull up I don't even have my stream deck here, so have to get that plugged back in. That being said, same activity we would expect every week has taken place this past week, going across the edge of the craton. Now, let me turn off all the numbers and just look at where the earthquake struck over the course of the last 7 days. This is from the USGS. And it looks like a giant focus point going in on Wyoming, doesn't it? Again, we'll back it out. It's all 3 sets of arrows are pointing in on there. Do you see it, right? Like coming in from the northwest, it's a diagonal line of earthquakes going along the edge of the craton out of Montana down into Yellowstone. Then there's another line of earthquakes coming out of Washington and Oregon, and it's going across Idaho, and it's going over to Yellowstone. And then coming out of Nevada, going across over into Utah, and it's following the diagonal line to the northeast, fulfilling the other side of that arrow shape. And so when these arrows were not on here many years ago, I noticed that this was happening in an arrow-like shape almost, which is why we put the arrows on there. It's like a direction. It's pointing us in which direction that it's ultimately all going. The flow of the seismic activity is going this way. And so we go down through Texas, up through Oklahoma, across the New Madrid seismic zone, and up the east coast, edge of the craton, dropping off equidistantly spaced earthquakes all the way along the way this past week as well. So this is every week this way. If you're a new viewer, this is nothing abnormal. We see this every week the same way. I showed this to professionals many years ago, over a decade ago. I showed this to the top professionals, and they said it was chance back then. Well, here we are now. Chance ceases to be chance when it happens every day and every week. So there's a direction to the way the earthquakes are going. And why? Well, there's a seismic wave that's going this way, and it's dropping off the earthquakes along the way as it hits things. So the seismic wave is guided by the plate, but then it hits things along the way, and it precipitates an earthquake along the way. There's all sorts of things that it hits along the way that cause earthquakes. You wouldn't believe the sources of many earthquakes. It's unbelievable how this seismic wave that's in the plate seeks out path of least resistance going around something, and how it can precipitate an earthquake because there is a low frequency wave down in the plate, almost like a radio wave, but it's an actual wave, a physical wave, which doesn't have a name yet, but we're calling it quake low frequency, or a QLF. I know that's primitive, but we'll come up with something. It's a very low frequency of some kind. It's electrical in nature, and it's passing around the plates. And when it hits certain things, it drops off earthquakes along the way as it goes through regions. This is the force that causes earthquakes overall. And it comes from the very low frequency that Mother Nature emits is coming from where the deep earthquakes are, a world away, a half world away. And it vibrates and follows the plate boundaries all the way into plates, where it's then absorbed and transferred across the plate. As it gets absorbed, it goes from 4s to 3s. 4s, 3s, 2s, but really it's 4 on the west coast, 3 on the east coast over at Ohio. The 4 on the west coast is out on the Juan de Fuca fracture zone, coming in right at the mouth of the San Andreas. And then the wave travels across, dropping off a bunch of smaller earthquakes along the way, like a ripple going across a lake. And then the greater wave, the overall wave, hits the other shore on the opposite side of the lake, if you want to think of it like that. And when it hits the other shore, if it hits it right, it reflects back into itself like a standing wave does. And then it builds in power until it escapes out. So we got a bunch of 3s popping off across the plate as the wave reflected back into itself. First it went across to the red earthquake, then it went back to the pink earthquakes, and now it's gone back across as 2s all the way up the East Coast. And that's what's happened over the past 6 days. That's normal. That happens all the time. And it's a big discovery in the world of geophysics that there's a standing wave traveling through things, dropping off earthquakes along the way. And that's why we get all the same sized earthquakes going across the plate. Once it gets absorbed, the wave, this seismic wave, gets absorbed into the plate, it travels across the plate. It's amazing. This took years and years of observation. Observing while being attacked. It was amazing. It was an amazing experience. You wouldn't believe what happened to me with that. Let's go on and talk about the rest of the smaller little activity on the West Coast, and then crank out a forecast for the West Coast really quick. So past 2 days, now this is not, actually, I'm just going to say it, this is not normal right now. What we're looking at here, this is what I would call abnormal. This doesn't happen all the time on the West Coast. Sometimes, a lot of times, it's what we call onesie-twosies. And what I really mean that, there's like a spot where there'll be one earthquake and another one where there's one earthquake and another one where there's one, and it's a bunch of little small earthquakes. Now, this is 48 hours worth of earthquakes here. Now, you should notice we have stacks of earthquakes in multiple locations, not just onesie-twosies. And we're going up to 3.3. We're not staying in that 0 and 1.0 level. We've gone up by a full magnitude and a half over the last day. So what's causing the stacks of earthquakes, and what's causing us to go up in magnitude? Well, think of this like an arrival of a wave. The wave is going down the San Andreas. It's hitting the southern portion of the San Andreas, reflecting into itself, while more energy is coming in from up here to the northwest. And so the seismic wave is reflecting into itself, and we get swarms of earthquakes breaking out at unique locations. Most of the locations in eastern California and Nevada, from up here to the north, all the way up here at the Oregon border, even up into Oregon itself. We can go look these up, but certainly starting at the Oregon border, going down into Nevada, and then going in a diagonal line. These are all volcanoes from up here, where this is marked in green, to here, to here, to here, to here, to here, to... we've already looked these up 1,000 times. I could name them off almost in many cases. The one I just had clicked on was next to, oh my God, make a liar out of me, right? I can't remember it. Jeez. Blowout Mountain. And then over to the west, we have Long Valley Caldera. Up to the north, we have the undiscovered supervolcano between Lake Tahoe and Pyramid Lake. And then down to the south, we go over to Ubehebe Craters. The lone earthquake out here, the 1.5, I do not know what's at that location. That is one earthquake that's not at, oh, it's Rachel, Nevada. It's Area 51. I said I didn't know it was there. I had to go see the name. All right, you go into Rachel, Nevada. That's where you stay if you're going to go. They got all the UFO stuff out there. Now, all these earthquakes down here are not at a volcano, but it's just as impressive. This location is a nuclear test site where the United States has hundreds of underground nuclear test freighters that exist. I'm not going to waste our time showing that, but showed it 1,000 times as well. So our nuke test site, bunch of zeros, bunch of small microquakes, as think of them like vibrations, tremors as the seismic wave is coming down and hitting a bunch of blast points in the plate, and then the wave travels over to the east and goes back up this way and connects with the edge of the craton. So that's what's going on in Eastern California. All the volcanoes are starting to light up with small earthquake activity as the seismic wave is inundating the West Coast, which means the West Coast is about to break. And it should break on land. And we can find the spot to watch by looking at our halfway points between our significant earthquakes along the coast. So let's turn down the rings here a little bit. There we go. So the last day and a half, look at this. 3 off. It doesn't look like much, just 3s, right? 3s off the coast, 3s coming in on the San Andreas, 3s going into the area north of the Bay Area, a 3 over next to the supervolcano at the Nevada border, and a 3.3 down here, right down at Ridgecrest, California, which is China Lake and the craters there for the volcanoes there. We have another same-sized earthquake, 3.3, up here next to Yellowstone, next to Hebgen Lake, east of Chalice Reserve, west of Yellowstone. So what does it mean? It means a wave equal to 3.3 has spread over to Yellowstone and down to Southern California today. Now that means in between where it came from and where it's gone to, there's going to be a new break. And we have to watch along the coast. That's the most prone area. It's where the plate boundary is, and it's where a majority of the earthquakes are coming in. So I would watch for the triangulated three-way point along the plate boundary, which then puts us somewhere right in here, east of the valley. Reno, we would watch Reno west towards the valley. That puts, let's see, Oso, California. No, wait, that's not Oso. Boy, I don't have my map open, but this is west of Lake Tahoe. Don't remember the name of the location directly. Oroville. That's it. Paradise and Oroville. Paradise and Oroville, California. That's the location to watch. And for magnitude, we go a magnitude and a half up, or 1 to 1.5 magnitude increase. I think it's going to be in the 5 range. But good news is the last 5 that I was looking for it to strike here. I was looking for up to 5.5, and instead of 4.6, a magnitude less, struck here. So if that holds true again, and I'm wrong again, then instead of getting it at Northern California, we would get it over to the west of Eureka, and it would be the same thing. It would be a magnitude under. Now, the USGS and their magnitude under reporting thing, I'm telling you right now, and their 0.9, between the 0.9 thing and their under magnitude reporting to begin with, I don't even know what to tell you. This is just what I'm telling you based on what the current earthquakes are that they're showing me. And I have to trust the numbers from them, which is somewhat, it's like asking to trust a thief. I trust him, but man, I don't want to. That being said, have a plan, be prepared. That's the forecast. Now, for the rest of the country, I know a lot of people are concerned about what goes on across the Midwest. This coming week, I think the New Madrid seismic zone in my neighborhood here in Missouri, right down here. What would you say the halfway point is between the 2.6 and the 2.5? If we just drew a straight line, well, that's going to be kind of hard to do with my mouse, but it takes us somewhere just east of St. Louis. So I live just west of St. Louis, and we hardly ever get any earthquake activity in the St. Louis area. If anything, it strikes across the river over next to the nuclear power plant where they're generating a bunch of human-made very low frequency up at the surface. And the seismic wave seeks out those points like nuclear power plants and Not just nuclear, coal fire, natural gas, hydroelectric dams, solar power plants, wind farms, any place that humans are generating very low frequency in a large abundance. Mother Nature seeks out these points with its very low frequency of its own in the plate, and it matches. Scalar forms where the two waves match electromagnetically, and that's where the earthquake strikes. That being said, I'll watch east of St. Louis over here in Illinois, right across the river from me, and we'll look for up to 3.5, which is pretty rare. I hope I got that right. If I'm wrong, well, it'll be bigger likely. Yes. So there's your impromptu forecast. Just getting on to let you know I'm here. I'm still around. Again, you can go over and ask Grok, and Grok will probably get it better than me. AI can measure things down to a very fine point without even telling you how it's doing it, right? Like, so if you asked along the plate boundary, Grok could possibly theoretically map out the plate boundary and find it down to the meter or something, where I'm trying to eyeball it and get it down to the 200-mile region. But Grok has it down to 200 to 260, 200 to 250 miles. I gave it the parameters, and Grok was able to correctly forecast the earthquake within a magnitude and within 263 miles. So, and on its first try. I'm not one to flame up AI or anything, but I think it's really cool that it can do it, because then I don't have to rely on professionals. Talk about not reliable. You discover an earthquake forecast. Imagine yourself, listen to this. You're the discoverer of a method for forecasting earthquakes down to 200 miles and within a week and within a magnitude, right? Everybody thought it was random. It's a big deal. And you try to give it to the professionals, and they mock and ridicule you like it's the Dark Ages and you're Galileo or something, and they're the church. So you try for like 10 years, 15 years, you try over and over again to give it to the professionals without any charge, without anything. Here's what I discovered. Here it is. And instead, the whole time, they're bashing you the entire time, and they refuse to test it. Then they falsely say that they tested it and don't provide the tests. They just say they tested it. Somebody said they did, and that's it, right? Well, I submitted it. Instead of submitting it to a professional to test, I decided to submit it. I did submit it to them, but instead of just waiting for them 15 years and them mocking me, I gave it to AI. And it was able to do it on the first try within a magnitude within 260 miles. You know what the professional said to that? Well, it's easy to identify a halfway point between two areas. That's what the Skeptic Forum is now saying. It's easy to identify a halfway point between two areas. So, of course, AI can do it, they said. And I said, wow, that's pretty interesting, because that's the fundamental principle of earthquake forecasting, is that the halfway points between two previous earthquakes that struck this week are being hit with a new earthquake in the middle point, or roughly the middle point between the two previous earthquakes, a standing wave. And that then confirms earthquake forecasting. And I didn't have to go do a white paper with the professionals to sign off on it. And please, please review my paper. And maybe if you understand it and can understand it, you can then approve it. Yeah, we skipped all that and gave it straight to AI. AI can do it. Professionals look like dumbasses now for denying it and saying that there was no progression of earthquakes. They said it was chance. They said the earthquakes going down through Texas and up the East Coast were chance. 15 years ago or 14 years ago, they said it was chance when I tried to show what I found up front. Here we are 15 years later. It's still going in the same direction, down through Texas and up the East Coast. So much for chance. Again, like I said, chance ceases to be chance when it happens all the time. Remember that quote when people try to call things chance? You're like, yeah, man, the chance is like a rare occurrence. If it happens all the time, it's called regular. Somebody else said to me, hey, earthquakes happen all the time in that location. Why even bother forecasting? And I said, the same could be said for the weather in the Midwest and severe weather every year. Same for hurricanes. Same for snowstorms. Happen every year in the same location, man. Same kind, same style, same everything, same location, same direction. All that, man. You could just like throw a forecast up and say it's going to snow this year. Of course it is. Yeah, let's not apply that to weather, they said. Oh, okay, all right. So a double standard, is it? Okay. I love joking around about this stuff. What I really ran into was a scientific phenomenon called cognitive dissonance, guys. It has to do with ego and human human behavior. It's a sociology experiment of some kind. But a psychology, yeah, sociology. It's a little psychosociology. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, good evening. It's good to be here, and I will be here if you need me, hopefully. Otherwise, you guys can start doing your own forecasting, and you'll probably get it down better than me. But now you know what to look for. We're going to look for a large earthquake in. Oh, I didn't even talk about Central America and South America. So I think this week we're going to be also talking about significant activity at the Mexico El Salvador border region right down here at the plate boundary. I have not checked the Volcanic Ash Advisory Center, so I don't know what the volcanoes are doing right now. I probably should go check that really quick. Hold on. Let's go check the VAAC at Volcano Discovery. I'm just going to read it to you. I don't think you need to see it on screen, do you? Is there anything? What? Yes, there is. Okay, you need to see it. Jeez, I haven't checked it in forever. And the first thing at the top of the list is Central America. Hold on. There we go. So right off the bat, Santiago Guido in Guatemala, just right next to the Mexico border. Poas in Costa Rica, again, Central America volcano. We go to Indonesia, Bulasan in Philippines, but then look, Reventador is back in Ecuador. It's been a while. So it looks like Central into South America is starting to light up. Look, Sanjay, Popocatépetl in Mexico. I don't recall this one. Home Reef. Do you guys ever recall seeing Home Reef? When did Home Reef start showing up? What's this? How long has Home Reef been on there? Nobody talking about it. Where's the videos? Home Reef. What? Is it on the list from earlier this week or anything? Yeah, Home Reef. Look, it's eruptions, minor intermittent low-level eruptions. I have never seen this volcano mentioned by anybody. Home Reef volcano. Look at that. Tonga. Well, gotta go look it up. All right, let's go look it up. Home Reef volcano. Home Reef, Tonga. Well, isn't that wonderful? Look at this. Looky here, guys. Gonna zoom in on Home Reef volcano because that's what it looks like. Look at that. So in our last flyover, which was 2016, there is no surface volcano here at all, as far as I can see. And we've got our most recent imagery on. 2016 is the last flyover. Pretty interesting. Okay. So let's find out more information on the volcano. Now, there they have an actual photograph of it, but they have it listed as I bet it gets washed away. Submarine volcano midway between the Metis Shoal. It's first reported active in the mid 19th century. Let's go see when the last eruption on it was. Because again, I checked that feed for years. Never seen Home Reef on there. Do we have a Smithsonian on this? Looks like we do. Eruptive history. Come on now. There we go. What's going on here? Ah, there we go. Well, look at that. So it looks like 1852, 1857, and then it went a long time with nothing, and then 1984, and then 2006, and then 2022, 2022, 2023, 2024. How is it that this volcano Did not. Do you guys recall seeing Home Reef Volcano on any update that I did in 2022, 2023, or 2024? I did daily updates. If not daily, certainly weekly, I was doing updates. And to not see it? Come on. What? How did these get listed on here and they didn't get on the list when they happened? I'm not doubting that it erupted. I'm just saying that what the heck? Okay. Whatever, man. So it's erupted each year now for the last several years. Well, I learned something new today. Okay, we're moving on. So it looks like Central America has a little cluster of activity. Let me show you where these are. So Popocatépetl Batal is here, Santiaguito, and let's see, Santiaguito and what was the Reventador, Santiaguito, Poes, Sanjay. So we're going all the way down to here in Ecuador. Then we come back up to Poas. Then we go up through. All the volcanoes are active. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're equidistantly spaced with eruptions across Central America. And look at our seismic over the last 2 days. Check it out. Look how much activity's been there. Right? Nothing reported from the USGS over the last 48 hours across all Central America going down in South America. When stuff like that starts to happen, I start to wonder, one, did they cut the feed because of all the volcanoes show activity? You'd start seeing a bunch of fives show up here on the feed, for instance, if they were reporting the shaking around the volcanoes. So it could be that they're removing those and then we're not seeing any seismic get reported, which would be weird, but or it really did go quiet across all of Central America, quiet, noteworthy earthquake wise. No fours, no fives, no sixes in the course of several days. Let's go back 3 days. There's our last earthquake 3.5 days ago, which was all the way down here on the plate boundary at Ecuador. Since then, it's gone quiet. And quiet is not good, in my opinion, across an active seismic zone with 4 or 5 volcanoes erupting at once. So we would watch the middle of Central America. So let me adjust the warning. We're going to just change it to a single earthquake we're going to watch for in Central America, and we're going to take it right here to Panama, Costa Rica, in the middle of all the volcanoes. Or is that Honduras? Nicaragua. That's Nicaragua here. So Nicaragua is who we have to warn. All right. Nicaragua, and we will warn you for the same sized earthquake that struck down to the south, mid-range 6. It'll be your first 6 in months, if not for the full year, in 12 months' time. Maybe even longer. It's been a long time since Nicaragua's had any significant seismic, but come on. There's 4 volcanoes erupting. There's 6.3 on the south side, and there's nothing going on across all Mexico. Something's getting ready to pop over on the west coast. West coast of Central America going up into the southern portion of the United States. And already talked about the U.S. Another rare earthquake struck this past week down here in Australia. Aussies, to my Australian viewers, look down here. A 5.1 somewhat rare earthquake struck, and it's called Singleton, Australia. Are you looking for another citizen? You know, if you guys would legalize it, I'd move there. Right? If you legalized it. You know what I mean by it, right? The evil weed with its roots in hell. Come on, guys. Lighten up, will you? Trying to get your attention. So here we are. We're in Australia. What else is going on? Oh, the old volcanic segment, is it? So a long time ago, many eons ago, this was a volcanic field. You could say this was all undersea a long time ago too, but again, you aren't going to find remnants of volcanoes in here. I mean, this is like some kind of ancient volcanic field from a very long time ago. Now it's since turned into mountains. We're on the surface, but at some point a long time ago there was ancient volcanism in southeast Australia, right down here. As a matter of fact, a lot of this You can come in and look up the history on it. If you again, it's not active now. It's not like they're named volcanoes. It's kind of like when you look at the United States and you look across a whole area of the West Coast, or, Western California, Nevada, that you could say that that's a volcanic segment. That there's an areas where there's ancient volcanoes that exist there. Now on the West Coast, they're still more pronounced, but down here, I don't see anything too big except for the giant quarry that's right next to the location. But this is not listed as a quarry blast, is it? No, it's at a 10-kilometer depth. This would be the deepest quarry in the world if it was a quarry blast. But it's not a deep quarry, it's a surface mining point, and look how many there are. So along here, we would see man-made faulting that would happen, spreading out from all the surface fissure fracturing that's happening through the penetration of the surface. Deep down in the plate, coming up to the surface, is the seismic wave. We see this happen next to quarries in the United States, many miles away, but still next to the quarry. So you get a giant quarry, and then next to it, like 10 miles away, 15 miles away, you get a new earthquake that breaks out that's not a blast from the quarry, it's a fracture in the plate. Here, this is 7 miles from the quarry. But they're big enough to be seen from space, or, well, from aerial balloon, Satelloon. From the Satelloons, we can see it. That being said, have an earthquake plan, be prepared. I'll be here if you need me. Any big earthquake activity strikes, I will be back on at a moment's notice. I was just thinking about Japan. The last mega quake that we had was 2011. Think about that. 14 years ago was the last mega quake. So it's been a long time since we've had a big earthquake, where it sends out a tsunami that goes across the whole planet kind of thing. Haven't had one of those since Japan. And then you have to go back 10 years before 2011, basically. Or was it 2005 or 6? There was the Banda Aceh megaquake. So they were pretty frequent, actually. There was 2 back-to-back megaquakes, and normally they happen every 50 years or so, right? But we haven't had one in well over a decade. The biggest that we've gone up to is in the 8.0 range, and most of the 8s have struck out in the middle of nowhere. The most recent 8, which was downgraded to 7.8 or 7.6, was in Thailand, and that was just last month. And that was on land. And they covered it on the first day or two of the quake, and then just out of the news. Trump and Musk and Doge dominating the news after. Wake up, dude. But there's no money to be made. So the media doesn't cover it. Okay. That being said, much love. I'm here. We're all good. All things considered. Don't be scared about earthquakes, at least. Now that we understand which way they're coming from and which way they're going to, and that there's a force that causes them, that goes from region to region, it kind of takes the mystery away out of earthquakes. It lets you know when there's something spreading. And you know where it's spreading from, and you kind of know where it's spreading generally too. Well, you can do forecasting on that. That's what I'm doing for you here now. Word up. Peace out. We're going to play some music in a little bit. I played some 80s just a little while ago, but I was doing it to record. I'm going to mix that next. So we're going to try and mix what I recorded earlier from DJ Daniel Thomas. I'm going to mix DJ Daniel Thomas's mix. We're going to remix the mix. See how it goes. Much love. Thanks for sticking around. Oh, and thank you for subscribing. Thank you for paying to subscribe to my channel. If you're a person that pays to subscribe to my channel, I know I haven't been around as much as the past several years. I was around for almost every day. I was available for past several years, but in the past 6 months to a year, things kind of took a dive here personally. I had to get things going personally here in the real world, if you want to call it that. And it required me to break off from my online job. I'm putting more back into the online job now, obviously. And anything else changes, I'm here at a moment's notice. Man, all kinds of stuff can happen. Like the big blast that happened over in Iran. You probably didn't even hear about it. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Let me see if I can find video. Hold on. If you did not see the blast over in Iran, stick around for like 2 seconds. I will go to get it. Yeah.
At least four.
Many people have been killed. I don't know, more than 14 now confirmed, but let me get the display capture turned on here. This is from Disaster Compilations channel. Okay, so here, I'm not going to. Here, hold on. Start it over. There we go. So we get the red and black smoke, just like the big blast over in the Mideast a couple years ago. Look at that. Here, let's do that in slow motion here. Hold on. Let's turn it on slow. Oh, geez, you can see the blast come at him. Check this out. Hold on. Watch the parking lot where the cars are. Just watch the pavement of the parking lot. Jeez. And that's in slow motion. That's at 0.25% speed, quarter speed. The shock wave coming across. Right. Right there. Like a wave. Boom. All right. Wow. I bet that blew that guy. I mean, obviously they survived. They uploaded the video, right? What else? Oh, God. Okay, this one's real close. How do you even survive that? Oh, we're still watching in slow motion here. Let me turn it back up to normal speed. That was super slow motion. That was slow motion, guys. Hold on, hold on. That was slow mo. Wow. Dang. They actually survived. Did you see that person survived? Oh God. Oh God. Oh, there's a guy in the forklift all the way down there. There's a dude in the forklift trying to drive away. Look at that. He's in the truck. He's trying to drive away. Oh, they're dead. It looks like a mini nuke, right? Like it's just like the last one. That's what I'm talking about. It's just like the last one in where was it? Beirut? Was it Beirut? Geez, that's the shockwave hitting the buildings. Oh my God. Okay, anyway, just thought you'd want to see it in case you didn't see it on the news. Not that we want to look at blasts like that or anything, but seriously, I'm surprised it didn't show up on the seismic feed. All right, we're here. Much love. Be safe.